We welcome Baylor student athletes Queen Egbo and Ja'Mee Asberry. We will take in-person questions first, and if anybody's in the Zoom waiting room, we will take those. As always, when asking a question, please identify yourself by your name and media affiliation. And Queen and Ja'Mee will go ahead and take questions. Chad?
Chad Conine, Waco Tribune-Herald. Queen, this is, again, familiar territory for you. When you were a freshman, you were here preparing for a second-round game. Last year, the bubble thing. But as a senior going into it, does it feel like it did 3 years ago? Is it different? What's your perspective on all of that?
It's definitely familiar, but it happened so long ago, so that feeling has kind of faded a little bit. I feel like we need to all refresh our minds and, make another run and make it past this team. Of course, they're a good team, and so we're just worried about getting past this one, and everything else will come together.
And for Ja'Mee, Coach was saying yesterday that they're trying to get you in rhythm in the second half. And I don't know if y'all just had practice or about to have practice, but you kind of looking for that, trying to find that rhythm now that you're in the postseason and trying to get your team, some production there?
So I was in the rhythm starting the Big 12 tournament, but I think kind of yesterday I got out of whack a little bit. So I just got to bring my confidence back and get back in that rhythm. And, I can't get down on myself from what happened yesterday. Only thing I can do is help my team the best way I can.
Jay, also from Midco Sports. Ladies, I'd love to hear both perspectives on this, but just after getting a look at South Dakota yesterday and seeing what they were able to do against Ole Miss, what are your early impressions of that matchup with the Coyotes?
Obviously, they're a very physical team. They're very fundamental. They play well together, and they know each other very well and what their capabilities are. And so I feel like they just play within that, and they don't do too much. And they just play simple basketball. And nowadays, you see people trying to do too much, and that's what often, gets them off track. But I feel like South Dakota is real poised, and they have a lot of experience, so they're able to play well together.
I would say, majority of the team are seniors. So this is big for them. You don't want to, leave on a bad note on your senior year. So, like she said, they're a very good team. They've been playing together for 4 years now. They do the little things that help them that people may not notice, but, they can drive, they can shoot, they can rebound. They have all the good things, the good qualities within their team. So I just think that if we bring our good qualities, we'll be okay.
Queen, there aren't many teams in the country that can, defend both you and Alyssa. And this looks like maybe a matchup where they would, be hard-pressed to do that. Does that put a lot of pressure on you guys, though, to be the determining factor in the game?
For sure, I feel like just the attention Alyssa brings as well as some attention that I bring can focus in and laser in on us. But I definitely feel like tomorrow is going to be a guards game. I feel like because they pack the paint so much, the guards should be able to knock down shots and get easy looks. And that'll open things up for us in the paint, which will make things a lot easier. But initially going in, of course, we're going to look to dominate. Of course, we're going to look to crash the glass and finish those easy bunnies around the rim. But I feel like just as much as it is our game, it's going to be their game too.
Queen, they were able to kind of frustrate Shakira Austin yesterday. What did you notice just by watching the way they defended, a big-time post from Ole Miss?
Well, of course, Shakira is a great player. She's one of the best players in the country. She brings a lot of attention, and they were literally like triple teaming her, sending 4 people around her whenever she caught the ball. So it was just kind of hard for her to do anything. She didn't really have another post player that could relieve her pressure, and she didn't also really have guards that were knocking down shots consistently to relieve that pressure. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be a guards game just as much as it's going to be a post game because, post players do draw attention, but it's up to guards to make shots to get some of that attention away from them.
Jamie, you've chased a lot of different guards around a lot of the season. They've got a really good one in Chloe Lamb. Do you know if that will be your assignment, if that will be J. Lou's, or and what do you just kind of look forward to when playing a player like that?
We actually don't know the matchups right now. She may be a little too tall for me to guard, so I might guard the second one. That's just as good as her. But I don't fear anyone. If you put me on the best, I'll guard them. There's no pressure with that, because they can't kill you. All they're gonna do is just get buckets. So all I gotta do is play my role. Do what I do best, and if she gets off, then just try my best to calm her down. Or don't let her get off at all. So I feel like that's how I look at it when I guard anyone.
Michael McClure, Argus Leader. Queen, similar question about South Dakota center Hannah Shervin. What are some of your early impressions of her, just, dealing with her in the post?
She's definitely an efficient post player, I would say. She does her work early, and she's always moving and active. I will say she is a little bit of a flopper, and she does it well. She sells a lot of those fouls. It might not be that much contact, but she really she makes it look like they're beating her up. So she gets people in foul trouble, and she draws a lot of fouls, which is good for her team, but definitely won't engage in that tomorrow. Try not to get in foul trouble with her.
One more.
Jamie, just when you look at this team, South Dakota defensively too, what stood out about what they were able to do against Ole Miss, and how do you counter that?
They played a gap defense, which is where they packed the lane a little more. I feel like Ole Miss struggled with shooting the ball, and I feel like that's our advantage. We're home. We have the home advantage. Hopefully our crowd can get behind us and our guards just shoot the ball as well as they did yesterday, Sarah and Jordan. So I think that we will have to bring them out a little more, which will also allow us to drive the ball even more. So if we get the threes going in our drives, then it's really easier to dump it off to the post or hit the post on the pick and roll or hit them while they're running in transition. So I just think that if we bring them out a little more, then we'll be fine.
All right, we welcome Coach Nicki Collen. Coach will take in-person questions, and we'll go ahead and begin. If you have a question, please state your name and affiliation, please.
Chad Conine, Waco Tribune Herald. Nicki, you talked yesterday about how good South Dakota is. That maybe wasn't really even an upset yesterday. In the last 14 or 16 hours or however long it's been, what have you kind of learned more about them?
I mean, it's just continuing to watch film. They have 3 seniors who are their all double-figure scorers and super seniors at that, and they know what they're looking for. They're very good coming off of ball screens. Defensively, they gave up 51 points per game. So a part of me, as we were talking about how to defend certain actions, I said, it's great. We have to have a defensive game plan. But we have to have an offensive game plan because this is a team that does such a good job of limiting their opponents and controlling pace. They don't play particularly fast, and so because of that, it shrinks the number of possessions in a game. And so, we have to do a good job of creating pace ourselves, of getting early actions before their defense is set. They're a team that, while you don't think they're like a super pressure, super turnover type team, they're so good in the gaps. They're so good digging in the post. If our posts mess around with it in the post and start dribbling, they're going to dig it out and go the other way. So certainly not a team that thrives necessarily in a points off turnovers type game like a Texas, but they do create them by how good they are, how good their synergy is on defense. So really good on both sides of the ball.
Jay Olson, Midco Sports. Coach, did you go back and pay particular attention to your matchups with Oklahoma and theirs? And if you watched their game against Oklahoma, what did you learn about them?
Honestly, I have not gone back. I watched OU before we played OU the first time. I went back and watched South Dakota against them, but there are teams in our league that, quite frankly, play so differently than us that it's not going to be my first look. Like if I'm going to go back and look, one of the first games I watched was Texas A&M because I know their personnel, because I know how they play. And even though we don't necessarily run all the same stuff, like because of how OU plays, because of their pace, because of them playing a lot of that matchup zone, it's just so different. They're going to run different stuffs, different things are going to work. I just feel like Oklahoma, like if I'm going to watch a conference opponent, I'm going to watch Kansas, because of how they defend and the offensive stuff they run. They're probably the most similar to us in terms of offensive and defensive philosophies, not necessarily personnel. But I have watched that game, but it's been a while. It's been since our first matchup with OU in early January.
Nicki, you said yesterday that Nalissa was a bit under the weather. Is that something where she's going to maybe feel a lot better tomorrow? And also, the kind of third quarter that she had, is that just a, kind of a built-in part of who you guys have to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think as she, anytime you have a cold or the flu or something like that, I think, you feel better day by day, fluids, rest, those type of things. And so, I think she feels better than she did yesterday. I think she felt better yesterday than she did the day before. And, and do we need that? I mean, look, Nalissa's our best player. And in big games and in big moments, we absolutely need the best version of Liz. And, I think, she's someone that doesn't back down from a challenge. And I think was a little like, wow, if I may be a little sick, but, if I'm going to play, I need to play, as opposed to going through the motions. And I thought early she kind of had to get over the hump of, being out there and being a little winded, and certainly played her fewer minutes than I normally would, which was obviously good, coming into a 2-game weekend. But, I mean, she's someone that showed how she can get in transition, who dominated the offensive glass. And I think that's something, they're a unique team in some ways because they aren't bigger than us in the post, but they're obviously bigger than us everywhere else. And so it's kind of one of those, they're all the same. They're all 5'10", and then, their center's 6'2". So, but the thing that they do that's pretty incredible is they are a box out team. There are teams that are go get teams, and there are teams that are box out teams, and they hit you at your legs early, and they make you not want to go to the glass. And if you watched Ole Miss yesterday, they did not get on the offensive glass near as much as they normally do. And a lot of that was they got hit early, and if you want to win a game against South Dakota, you can't let their physicality wear you down. They know they're a little undersized in the post, and they just do such a good job of rotating and boxing, even if they're in rotations, because they're all capable of switching and guarding in the post. And so, I mean, that's what they do, to kind of take your will away at times.
Michael McClear, Argus leader. South Dakota's not a team that turns over the ball a lot, and I'm sure part of speeding them up would be forcing some turnovers. So how do you handle trying to force some turnovers on a team that's careful with the ball like that?
They're a little like us, honestly. I mean, they have multiple ball handlers, and I think that's what makes them hard to guard. There's as much as they're capable of running a lot of motion. When you break it down in terms of volume of what they're running a lot of two-player action. They're running a lot of middle ball screen action. They're putting their ball in the hands of a really good playmaker and making simple reads off the ball screen. And so, they'll mix in some motion, and they certainly, it can be a little scary to watch it, because if you're not a motion team and you don't defend motion regularly, it's a little daunting task to overthink it and overreact to it. But I think what they do in terms of taking care of the basketball has a lot to do with the fact that their primary ball handlers are seniors, fifth-year seniors, and they're big, so they see over the defense a lot, and they just make careful passes. I mean, so they're kind of a well-oiled machine. They know where they want to go. They don't over-penetrate very often, and they know where they want to pass it when they do penetrate deep. So not a team that goes to the foul line very much, and a lot of that is because they've got a lot of big guards who like to shoot pull-up jump shots. So not going to draw a lot of fouls, also not going to put themselves in position, to be in there deep and turning the basketball over in a crowd. So they know they want the wraparound pass if they get deep. They know where their people are supposed to be, and they're really good at being there.
I asked Ja'Mee a minute ago about chasing guards around and not trying to expose game plan or anything, but with Chloe Lamb, the type of player she is that comparable to Atwell from yesterday, to Jones from conference? Is there anybody you can pick out?
She's probably some combination of Emily Ryan. She's not as big as Ashley Jones. She's not as big as really even Atwell, to be honest. But she has some of their, Atwell is like hand down, man down. I think Chloe Lamb is a little bit more. She's always searching shots. She's really good with her step back. She likes to get to her pull up. She's usually got size in those situations. Yesterday probably underestimated how long Shakira Austin was. We talk a lot about how sometimes, a bad shot is the same thing as a turnover. It doesn't count as a turnover in the box score, but when you try to pull up over 6'5" and long and you get it blocked back at 15 feet, that's similar to a turnover. But she's so good at creating space, when she's got smaller defenders on her. In the step back game, she's so good getting to her left hand and finishing with a variety of angles and levels on the glass, and and she doesn't take a lot of bad shots, and so certainly at WNBA, she's going to be in the WNBA draft. There's no question in my mind. She's I don't know where people have her projected right now, but she's a big guard with skill, and I think can play with the ball in her hands, can play without the ball in her hands. I think she's got a chance to be pretty special.
Sorry. When you look at, I lost my train of thought. Look back at what they were able to do yesterday, and Queen mentioned, how they defended Shakira, and obviously they paid a lot of attention to her, rightfully so, and it worked for them. But Queen said she expected this to be more of a guard-driven game. Is that kind of what you feel too?
No. I mean, I think they play. They're really balanced with those three seniors, and I think it's a game. I think she feels that way. I'll tell you why I think she feels that way. But it's not because it's something that I've said. I think she feels like, because of how good they are at digging in and how much of a gap team they are, that we're going to have to make some perimeter shots. So there's some truth in that. But I think you can attack their gaps and make the next play. I think you can post up on them. I think you can't mess around with the ball. I think that's what I've tried to tell her. Like, if you get a low post catch and you haven't done your work early and you think you're going to have 3 or 4 seconds to dribble in place and go nowhere, then they're going to dig that ball out, And so I think in her mind, some of the things I've said, may have triggered this idea that it's going to be a guard-driven game. I think when you look at the balance of both teams, inside and out, I don't really think it's going to be one or the other, to be honest with you.
All right, we've got one more question.
And you mentioned Chloe, but Hannah obviously had a great day yesterday and won her matchup with Shakira Austin, although she admitted freely she had a ton of help defensively on her, but was able to create a lot of things offensively. What do you see when you look at Hannah Sherman?
Patient, efficient, works hard to gain position. The uniqueness of how Ole Miss played them, though, won her matchup if you put their faces side by side and said, here were their points and rebounds. But as far as, like, actually them matching up, Ole Miss switched a lot of ball screens. And so, she was doing some work against Maddie Scott. She was doing some work against any of the guard switches that she got. So I know she was 7 for 7, and I think 2 of those baskets were really good one-on-one moves that she made on Shakira. And so some of that is the nature of how Ole Miss plays. They've switched ball screens a lot all season long. A lot of their guards are longer, and Shakira can guard guards, and so that's kind of their defensive philosophy. But I think she's just, she's efficient and she's patient. She sets good screens. If you try to go over a screen on her, she's gonna act like you're bigger than you are, and gonna go down and draw fouls. In those ball screens, their guards do such a good job of getting their shoulders on her hip, and leaving no room for guards to get over. So the minute you just start trying to work your way through that gap, she'll take a seat on the ground. But she's so poised. Yesterday she started the game with a 3, which was obviously a big shot for them, to kind of create open space in the lane. But, part of how Ole Miss plays, they play super aggressive. They play one gap denial. The lane was clean. If you watch the film, when South Dakota ran offense against them yesterday, the lane was clean the entire game. There were never 2 feet in it. And so we just can't give them a wide open lane all night long, whether it's to cut into, roll into, drive into. We just have to I've always said we want the game to be pretty on offense and really mucky on defense, or messy. And we've just got to mess it up at the defensive end, because they can be real pretty on offense.